I'm going to go a little off the side here, but I almost think we forget sometimes that the Seahawks are going through a complete rebrand of who they are. And so for me, the expectations constantly that we seem to have as a society is that the Seahawks are always going to be competitive. They're always going to be right in this. But Mike Macdonald, the new head coach, came over from Baltimore. And it's stuck in my head that last year Ravens players were talking about the fact that it took a couple of years to really understand what that defense was about. So now you have a defensive coordinator that's going over to Seattle to take over a team that needs that time to figure out what the defense is really all about. And at the same time, I don't think that they have a sure thing, honest answer at the quarterback position that everybody really understands. And we have no idea what the offensive identity is truly going to look like. So to me, it wouldn't be a surprise at all. Like just the expectation that the Seahawks are going to be competitive this year feels like unreached to me. To me, the Seahawks are in the spot. And I think Frank will agree that I say this about most new coaches. First year head coaches come in and they start a gut. And when you start gutting things more often than not, it gets into something difficult, especially if your schemes are complicated. Mike Macdonald's schemes are complicated. So I think it's reasonable to expect the Seahawks to take a fairly drastic step back before they can rebuild that. I don't think they're going to be in bad hands long-term. But to me, the Seahawks seem like they're haven't won by one their schedule, but they seem to me like a 6-win team this year. And I think that's far different than where the expectation comes in for them.
And I'm completely opposite on you. I think that Seattle could be really good this year. I think Mike Macdonald could be one of those first-year coaches who we're talking about, like Brian Daboll with the Giants winning Coach of the Year, or Jason Garrett back in the day did win Coach of the Year. Matt Nagy won Coach of the Year. First-year guys, because I think the talent is there for Seattle. They really underachieved last year. And I do agree with you on Macdonald's schemes being very complicated. If you read about what he did with the Ravens, they run a lot of the same things out of completely different looks, and you need your players to be used to that. They need to know, okay, we're running this out of this look. We've done this before out of that look. We get it. We're veterans. We can do that. So you're right. It might take an adjustment period, but I just look at that team and there's just a talent everywhere at receiver position. Geno was good 2 years ago. He regressed last year. I get that, but he's still got the talent. Their offensive line isn't as bad as everybody thinks it is, and they do have talent on defense. I think Macdonald could get the most out of. So I think Macdonald could be, look, as I'm sitting here talking through it, Fitz, I might have to go make a Coach of the Year bet, because Mike Macdonald checks all the boxes of guys who just get votes for Coach of the Year. He's a rookie head coach. Everybody's going to say, wow, look at how he improved the Seahawks, where in reality, they just kind of underachieved last year. I think this team could be a playoff team in a weak NFC. I really like the Seahawks coming into this year. I don't think there's much expectations for them at all, really, coming into this year after they kind of did a face plant last year.
Frank, sorry, Jori, to jump in here, but doesn't that at some level sort of, I don't want to say disrespect because that's not your intent, doesn't that downplay the impact Pete Carroll had? Like, most of us believe Pete still has his fastball. So one of the best coaches in the NFL, supposedly, that's out there kicking ass every week, supposedly walks away. Like Mike Macdonald, I should say. We need too many of these Mikes in the league. Mike Macdonald coming in.
So many Mikes. Every head coach is named Mike and every GM is named Joe. I have a lot of thoughts about this, and I hope we one day do a full podcast on it. But also, I think that when you look at Mike Macdonald and how complicated his scheme is, I think the big thing is that I had someone tell me that he's like the Shanahan on defense in terms of scheme. And so I go back and look, well, how did Kyle Shanahan do when he first got to the Niners? And those first couple of seasons were 6-10, 4-12, but he also didn't really have a quarterback. And so I think I'm less concerned about, does he have the ability to teach in a way that guys can pick up his principles, and more, does he have the players and the personnel in year one that he's going to want to carry out his scheme? But I think that people will be able to pick it up. I also think with Pete Carroll, even if Pete Carroll is one of the best coaches and has a Super Bowl and was really successful at the college level, guys' success level at the end of a tenure with an organization is often different. It doesn't necessarily mean that they objectively lost their fastball, but the impact of that fastball and the impact of it to resonate at the end of a tenure in an organization that he'd been there so long, I think that that's something you have to consider the context.
Yeah, and I honestly just think Pete had a bad year. And he did. I think even Pete would probably say that. I like Pete Carroll. I think he had a heck of an NFL career if he doesn't coach again. But I just think last year wasn't his year for reasons maybe out of his control. But that team underachieved. And I think Mike Macdonald, just like Jori kind of alluded to, just gives a fresh voice in there. And he's very, very well respected around the league. He was very well respected by his Ravens players. I think that he can rejuvenate them a little bit. Not necessarily that Pete's bad. I think Pete, I was actually really, really surprised he was fired. I like Pete. I respect Pete. I just think he had a bad year, and I think Mike Macdonald, the hiring, if they could pick up that scheme quickly enough, and I think he's a smart enough guy to kind of adjust a little bit and simplify it to get these guys on the same page year one, I think they could really take off. I think this could be a really surprising team, actually.
Yeah, by the way, every time you say loss of voice and then anything with Michael Macdonald just makes me want to go full Doobie Brothers. Like, we need to get like a Doobie Brothers drop here, like woo, 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 like coming in. And Jori, Google it. Michael Macdonald's a singer.
Yeah, if I hear Jamo be there one more time.
I'm gonna be there. Oh, right.
Is that's old Macdonald?
Okay, this is look, Frank. What we need to dedicate. I'll tell you what, Jori. We'll dedicate a whole podcast to your
pop culture.
Mike and Joe.
Mike and Joe's. If you'll then just indulge us with a whole podcast full of music and pop culture references, that we'll just give it to you, and then we'll drop it in the show, and then we'll explain it, and then we'll see if you can use it back in a sentence. And like this could be a whole culturalization
I feel like
of Jori.
It would be way more entertaining for our listeners if we were to say, like, you give me a reference, you're like, what do you think that is? Since I won't know what anything is.
You will have no
like
clue,
those things are always so like I am the pop culture equivalent of what the Tennessee Titans do with their logos every year on schedule release. It's like no clue what's going on here.
This is a new game at the end of every episode that Jori's a guest on. From now on, we'll put it in the doc.
What is this movie about?
We'll give you a quote and then a multiple choice if you can figure out where it's from or what it's about. This is gonna be a delight. We'll add it to the doc. More work for
I'm
you.
glad I have value.
Oh God, so much.